Hi, I'm Jennifer Kendall, the founder of Acuity Path. I support women entrepreneurs in understanding and transforming their relationship with money, while also mastering the systems and processes to manage it with confidence. I combine deep mindset work with practical money tools so that you can move out of fear, step into clarity, and build a future that feels supportive and sustainable. So, whether you're watching from your desk or taking a quiet pause in a busy day, I am really glad that you're here. In today's video, we're exploring what happens when the calendar flips to mid-year and why that moment matters so much to your money decisions. More specifically, we are looking at the invisible stories that you've been carrying and how they quietly shape what you do in your business when things feel uncertain. My hope is that this conversation helps you see your money choices with more compassion and feel more grounded and trusting in yourself as you move forward. So here's what I notice happens in July. The calendar flips and something shifts. Not dramatically, but it's a real shift. January tends to feel hopeful. Everything was possible. You had plans, you had momentum, and you had this sense that this year was going to be different. But by mid-year, there's a different energy. The numbers are now starting to get real. You've actually got data. And if that data doesn't match the story that you told yourself way back in January, your brain starts to work overtime trying to make sense of it. And when things start to feel unclear or pressured, we don't reach for new strategies. We reach for what's familiar. We reach for those old patterns that sometimes go back years and even decades. We don't learn about money in a classroom. We learn about money by watching, by feeling, by living through experiences and absorbing messages that we didn't even know that we were absorbing. Things like money is hard to earn. You have to work twice as hard to be taken seriously. If you slow down, everything falls apart. And as the calendar flips over to July, these might even be louder as you're trying to balance the summer and work, especially our businesses. Or maybe the things that are playing in your head or the things that you learned and absorbed are things like, it's not safe to have too much, or good money requires struggle, or you should always be worried about stability. These kind of things can also have impacts on how you're interacting, especially midway through the year. All of this noise, these beliefs, they don't usually announce themselves in our heads directly, exactly the way I've said. There's not that specific. They actually show up in much quieter ways. They show up in how you price your work, in how you react to a month that's slower than expected, even how you react to a surprise success or quick momentum. It shows up in whether you actually look at your financials or if you avoid them because they feel overwhelming. So at the start of the year, you can override these patterns because your motivation is high and the year feels full and full of possibility. And you operate at that point from hope and intention. But by mid-year, when fatigue starts to set in, when the pressures all around us feel like we're being pulled in different directions, kids may be home, social things are going up, and there's still a business to run and a world that feels so uncertain. So when everything feels ambiguous or slower than you wanted or slower because of the season, our old narratives start to slip back in. And suddenly you find yourself undervaluing your service or delivering more, or you're overworking to catch up instead of actually thinking strategically about what will matter, or you're setting smaller goals in order to protect yourself from disappointment. This is what I want you to know about all of that. These are not discipline problems, and they're not signs of laziness. They're not even signs of failure. They're just your system trying to keep you safe from old information. Your nervous system learned something a long time ago, maybe from family, maybe from your experiences, and it's trying to protect you based on what it has learned. But the circumstances today are different. You're different. You've learned different things. So let's talk about what actually happens when we pause so that we can look at everything as this calendar flips with awareness and honesty. Mid-year isn't just about reviewing your numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about what you do with the numbers that don't match up to the identity that you held for yourself or that you created for yourself in January. By now, you've gathered real data, and the data has interesting power. It challenges the story that you were telling yourself back in January. And your brain naturally tries to make sense of the gap between where you thought you would be and where you are, good or bad. And it reaches for familiar expectations, the ones that are rooted in our past experiences, in our family patterns, and then the beliefs that you absorbed so long ago that you forgot that those beliefs weren't facts. Add in to this mix, into this story, some external pressure, such as our economic uncertainty, client fluctuations, all of our rising costs. And those old stories start to get a lot more believable and much more loud. And it's not hard to slip into thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this after all. Maybe I should have figured it all out by now. Or maybe I should just work harder. And your instinct to push through makes so much sense. But that's actually not what you need to do here. What is needed right now is more clarity, not to work harder, but to look at things differently. And this is the beautiful part, actually. That's not as big as it sounds. It just starts with a shift in perspective. So instead of this isn't working, you can get curious and ask yourself, what's here that actually needs adjusting? Instead of thinking I'm behind, let's shift it so that you're asking, what have I learned about what is actually working in my business? Perhaps instead of the belief that I have to do more, you can actually wonder what is aligned and effective right now, because those are the things that we want to shift your time to, not just more work. Or maybe instead of thinking money is unstable, you can notice what systems could create more stability for you, especially over time. These, what I'm mentioning, aren't affirmations that you should repeat because you think you should. These are honest questions for you to ask so that you can start to look at things in a different way and create different awarenesses and look at the same situation from different angles. You don't have to fully believe everything that you see just yet. You just have to be willing to entertain the possibility that your current interpretation of things might not be the whole picture and that there might be different ways to look at that picture. One of the places that this pattern shows up the most is in goal setting. So, right now, around mid year, you might find yourself lowering your targets to something that feels safer or completely avoiding financial projections because they look or feel scary. Or sometimes you can swing the other way and create goals that are aggressively fueled by urgency and the need to prove something. And I want to gently ask you this small question. Are you setting your goals for the second half of this year based on current data and actual strategy, or are you setting them based on fear? Because sustainable growth doesn't come from either extreme, it comes from responsive adjustments, from looking at what you're actually learning about your business and not from what you're running away from. Let me give you some grounded ways to start at looking at your goals. And I'm going to keep this simple because the simpler you keep it, the more I believe it actually works. First, just look at your numbers without trying to interpret them. And I know that sounds weird, but most people skip this step. They open their financials and immediately start to make meaning of them. But I just want you to observe. Observe the revenue, observe the expenses, the profit, the trends that you can see month over month. And I want you to observe them with no judgment, no story, just recognize them as data. Then notice what's actually working. So instead of looking at the gaps, look for the things that show what is working. Which of your offers are converting? Which months felt stronger? Where is your effort producing visible results? This kind of looking grounds you into the evidence that progress does exist, even if it's uneven, because progress is there. And even if it doesn't look exactly how you imagined, it is there. Next, pay attention to your own reactions. When you look at these numbers, what is coming up? Do you feel tightness, urgency? Do you want to avoid looking at them altogether? These reactions, they're breadcrumbs. They're pointing you towards the money stories that are active for you right now, the ones that are going to influence your decisions. Then I invite you to do something really important. Untangle the facts from the meanings or the stories you're telling yourself about those numbers. So, for example, fact, revenue dipped in April. The story that you might be making is, I'm not good at this, it's all falling apart. One is just information. The revenue dipped in April. The other is interpretation, and they feel different in your body. One feels more neutral, one feels stressful, anxious. But when we make those interpretations, the fact and the feelings get all tangled together. So practice separating them. And after that, I invite you to choose one aligned adjustment, not 10, not a complete overhaul, one. It could be refining how you present an offer. Maybe it's adjusting your prices. Maybe it's tightening your follow-up processes. Maybe it's setting a clearer monthly revenue target, something that will be responsive to what you're actually learning about your numbers. Just one thing, that's enough. And finally, anchor a simple financial rhythm. Mid-year is a perfect time to establish consistency. Maybe you can implement a weekly check-in with your numbers. 10, 15 minutes, just you and the data to have an honest look at it. Maybe you can add in a monthly review and planning session so that now that you've fixed one thing, each month you can adjust something else. Whatever it looks like for you, the key is that consistency builds safety with money over time. And when our nervous system starts to learn that you are paying attention, that you are in control, even when things feel uncertain, things start to improve. Now, I want to say something about the way we approach this work. It is really easy to teach recalibration like a performance review. We get critical, we feel urgent, and we focus on what is broken. But growth, especially around money, doesn't shift through pressure alone. What actually creates change is clarity and safety together. The key about all of this is you get to learn as you go. You get to adjust plans that aren't working. You get to feel uncertain without making it mean something about your capability or your future. You get to build a system slowly in bite-sized pieces and imperfectly instead of perfectly. There is nothing unusual about finding money challenging at this stage. There's nothing unusual about finding money challenging, period. If anything, it's often a sign that you're expanding beyond your previous level of experience. And that's growth. And growth should feel uncomfortable, a little bit unfamiliar. So that uncomfortableness is a good thing. It's a good sign. And it's nothing to feel shameful about. Here's what I want you to carry forward from all of this. You don't need to have it all figured out to move forward well. You just need clear eyes and a steady course. Your money patterns are not permanent. They're practiced. You learned them at some point, and you've been practicing them for years. And anything practiced can be reshaped with awareness and with consistency and with a little more self-trust than maybe you've had with yourself before. One small thing for you to sit with today. What's one money story you've been noticing right now? The one that's whispering a little louder as we move into the second half of the year. And what would a more supportive version of that story look like for you? Not with a forced affirmation, just a perspective that feels a little bit truer, a little kinder, a little more grounded in what you actually know. If you find something, that shift alone is worth something. I really hope that this video blog today landed with you. And if it did, I'd love for you to share it with someone who also needs to hear it. And if you're ready to go deeper into your money patterns and build systems and clarity that creates real confidence, I'd love to connect with you. Thank you for being here today.